Folks, it's with great pleasure I welcome Carl Zichella from the Sierra Club. He's the Regional Staff Director. Good to have you here.
Thanks, Tim. Good to be here.
And I know many of you have heard about the Sierra Club, but if you haven't or you want to hear what's new, check them out at sierraclub.org. Carl, in case some of our listeners haven't heard about the Sierra Club, why don't you give us a thumbnail sketch?
Well, Sierra Club was founded in 1892 by a number of people in San Francisco to help defend the Sierra Nevada.
Okay.
And over the years grew into what is now the oldest and largest conservation group in the United States. We've got 800,000 members nationwide and 1.3 million members and supporters. Here in California we have over 200,000 members. Of course, we're a little bigger where we began. And we've really dramatically changed over the years from being more of a localized conservation organization for one state to being what has become an international environmental powerhouse.
So you guys really have changed from the local to addressing more global issues, is that right?
Yeah, I think it was a gradual process.
Mm-hmm.
John Muir was an international celebrity, one of the first president of the Sierra Club, wrote many books about the environment, got people interested in Yosemite National Park before it was even a national park, actually helped lead the lobbying campaign to create the national park. The federal government had given the state Yosemite, and the state had done a terrible job protecting it, so they wound up establishing a national park there. But I mean, he traveled to Alaska, he fought for the beginnings of the national park system. He actually grew up in the Midwest in Wisconsin before coming to California. His family were Scottish immigrants. His story is uniquely American in that way, in that he was an immigrant family and became one of the most influential conservationists in U.S. history.
Well, when you mentioned the number of members and that you are a powerful lobbying group, how do you bring about the change you advocate? You focus on the environment, but what does the Sierra Club do to bring that change into being?
Well, our modus operandi is to help people who care about the environment get involved in protecting it. We're about giving people power, helping them understand the political process, helping them understand when the decision points on issues they care about are occurring, helping to, by having a large membership, unify our membership around key issues like global warming, which is our top priority, and raising resources to help educate the public and influence various levels of government action on these things, as well as individual responsibility.
And individual responsibility can't be stressed enough, listeners. I know you can feel frustrated sometimes with our government. You sign petitions, you wave signs, and you feel that change is not happening. But the Sierra Club is proof that change can happen. It does take time, it may be gradual, but we got to keep up the fight. And I think an inconvenient truth really stresses the need for the global warming fight. But as I understand it, the Sierra Club, Carl, is more than just advocacy. For instance, you have outdoor trips, is that right?
Yes, we do. Well, our outdoor trips originally started as a form of advocacy and continues so today. And a lot of them are purely recreational, but the first outdoor trips in the High Sierra that the Sierra Club ever did were to help create a constituency for protecting these areas. And we do conservation outings to this day, we do service outings. In fact, the most popular outings we do are people signing up to go and help build trails and protect areas around national parks, national forests, these sorts of things. So, that legacy from our beginning still continues. With regard to global warming and individual responsibility, if I could just say, this is a problem that has ultimate responsibility on the generations alive today. Everyone has to do it. We're not just going to get by with government action or an occasional corporate action. There is no silver bullet to this problem, but there is silver buckshot. And what I mean by that is there are many different things that are going to be needed to be done, and many of them are things that are done at the very local level by individuals. Just changing your incandescent bulbs, for example, out to compact fluorescent light bulbs has a very large impact. And if enough people do it, which is starting to happen now, the price of those things has crashed.
You've mentioned global warming. What other major issues, Carl, do you see facing the U.S. and global environment?
Well, really, I think if you look at major issues facing the global environment in the United States, you begin and end with the topic of global warming. All other issues are associated with this now. Whether you care about national forests, public lands protection, the effects of global warming are going to be radical on the range of forests, the extinction of species. The predictions are really shocking, and actually they're starting to be borne out. The models that everyone used to complain about are being shown to be very accurate about the effects of global warming where it would happen, how the oceans would warm, for example, and the effect that's having on coral reefs. I mean, if we do not solve this problem, no other problem becomes soluble. We're talking about the habitability of this planet and the ability of life on it to be sustained, and that includes our agricultural systems, which could in many places collapse due to drought. Here in California, one of the most severe impacts is declining snowpack in the Sierra Nevada.
Oh yeah, we've had a dry one.
It could completely disappear over the next 40 years. If that occurs, bear in mind, that's about half of all the water supply for the state of California. That's like a giant reservoir held in the snow and released just when we need it in the summertime. Predictions are that it'll melt off faster, we'll have a lot of rain on snow events, that once that snowpack disappears, we are going to lose water supply for about 22 million Californians who get their water out of the Delta, all the people in San Francisco who are getting their water out of the Hetch Hetchy system. It is an amazing miracle that we have in that snowpack. We can slow down the loss of the snowpack. We're going to lose some of it anyway, because right now there's enough CO2 in the atmosphere to cause a warming significant to reduce it somewhat. But if we get serious about this problem and work on it, we can delay the loss, and we can actually stop it at a point where we can actually maybe preserve a good part of our water supply in the state. People think the battles we've had over water so far have been intense. They haven't seen anything yet.
Well, folks, again, I think Carl raises a good point here. It's very easy to get caught up in the headlines and say all is doom and gloom and there's nothing I can do. But take a look at the guests who we've had on our show. We've had Build It Green on. We've had different groups talking about the environment, and now we have the Sierra Club. There are many ways you can get involved, from basic action to advocacy. The bottom line is you need to get involved. This is an issue we need to address. It's why we stress on our show each and every week environmental justice. Without that, well, I'm not quite sure if I want to live on the moon, but I won't be first in line. One question for you, Carl, and perhaps I get on my soapbox. Is it really that difficult to raise fuel standards, save the polar bear, and tackle the Big Cypress National Preserve? Or is it, in my humble opinion, just a matter of getting a political backbone and doing it?
Well, I think political will is a big part of the problem. It's a renewable resource, and it needs to be renewed right now.
Amen.
The truth of the matter is Congress has been completely gridlocked for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
We're seeing an opportunity now to do a lot of good with the Democratic control of the Congress. It has made a difference. Many Republicans, now that they're no longer being forced to walk the plank by their leadership and vote for bills that are actually making things worse on climate change, are now coming over and helping Democrats put together legislation. So I'm not willing to say we're out of the woods politically yet, but I think we're turning the corner. We have people like Nancy Pelosi leading. We're seeing the leadership, the chairmanships of all the major committees are now people, I think, that acknowledge it's inevitable. The Senate Environment Committee, the chief law writing committee for global warming, is chaired by our own Senator Barbara Boxer, who is a real hero, a real champion on this issue. So I have a lot of hope that we can do it. But while we're waiting for the national government, we shouldn't stop. I mean, California has helped lead the world. Our Clean Cars Bill, which would reduce CO2 emissions from vehicles, that law has been adopted by 11 other states, and 5 others are considering adopting it. If they do, they'll affect 40% of the U.S. automobile market, insisting on legally cleaner cars. That's a big deal, because if you separate out U.S. cars and trucks as a separate category all to itself, it's the 5th leading source of greenhouse gas emissions in the world. And the leading consumer of gasoline in the United States is here in California. So this is a very important step. EPA has been considering whether or not to allow California to implement this law. If they let us do it, then everyone else can do it. Exactly. So you have 11 to 16 states waiting to implement this law, potentially 16. So it's a very exciting time for us. The states have led, and local governments have led. There are 500 cities in the United States that have signed something called the Mayor's Agreement on Climate Change, started by Mayor Nichols of Seattle, that promise to reduce their emissions by a certain percentage below Kyoto levels. And if they all do it, we're making progress.